It was supposed to be the happiest night of their lives, the night before the vows, the rehearsal dinner, the laughter echoing through the church hall. But by sunrise, the groom-to-be was lying cold on the ground outside of his apartment, his blood staining the ground. And the man accused? Not a jealous ex, not a random stranger, but the bride's own father. What could drive a man of God to commit such an unholy act? And why did one simple word, no, seal a young man's fate? Sometimes, the darkest sins hide behind the purest smiles. Behind the white collars and polished sermons, there can lurk a storm of pride, obsession, and control. In this story, we're not just looking at a brutal crime, we're peeling back the layers of family loyalty, religious authority, and the dangerous line between protection and possession. What happens when a man who has preached forgiveness his entire life refuses to forgive a personal rejection? Before we dive into this chilling case, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that will have you questioning everything you think you know about trust, love, and loyalty. And if you're ready, let's step into a world where one no became a death sentence. Cedar Grove, Georgia, was the kind of town where everybody knew your name, your parents, and probably what you had for breakfast that morning. On the surface, it was peaceful, a postcard-perfect community with neatly trimmed lawns, family-owned diners, and a church bell that chimed every hour from the tallest building in town, Cedar Grove Baptist Church. For 25-year-old Jasmine Turner, this small town wasn't just home, it was the stage for what she believed would be the happiest day of her life. She had been counting down to her wedding for months, carefully picking every detail, from the silk petals that would line the aisle to the gospel choir that would sing her down it. Her fiancé, Anthony Brooks, was everything she had prayed for, kind, humble, and deeply rooted in his faith. They'd met 3 years earlier at a church charity drive. She had been helping hand out food parcels, he was setting up tables and chairs. They started talking over coffee that same evening, and the conversation never stopped. Their relationship had been steady and drama-free, something both of them cherished. The kind of love that wasn't just romantic but peaceful. People often said they were equally yoked, the perfect Christian couple. And no one was prouder of their union, or so it seemed, than Pastor Raymond Turner, Jasmine's father. That Friday evening, just hours before the wedding, Cedar Grove Baptist was buzzing with life. Friends and relatives moved in and out of the hall carrying boxes of decorations, trays of food, and freshly pressed linens. The air smelled faintly of lilies, the flowers Jasmine had chosen to fill the room with their sweet fragrance. Upstairs in the church office, Jasmine sat at a polished oak desk, the evening light spilling across her white satin robe. Her hair was pinned up, stray curls framing her face as she reviewed her handwritten vows one last time. She could hear the faint hum of conversation downstairs, mingled with the occasional burst of laughter. Every so often, she glanced out the window, smiling at the sight of Anthony moving between the reception area and the sound booth, checking cables and testing microphones. He looked at ease, in his element, but she didn't notice the way his smile faded whenever no one was looking. At around 7:15 p.m., Pastor Raymond stepped into the hall, dressed in a crisp black suit. At 52, he carried himself with the confident presence of a man used to commanding a room. People greeted him warmly, shaking his hand, praising his latest sermon. He smiled, but his eyes followed Anthony in a way that wasn't lost on a few church members. After a few minutes of idle conversation, the pastor approached Anthony. "Son," he said with that familiar deep voice, "when you get a moment, come by my study. There's something we need to discuss before tomorrow." Anthony glanced at Jasmine across the room, who was too busy laughing with her bridesmaids to notice. "Sure, Pastor," Anthony replied, his tone polite but cautious. 15 minutes later, Anthony knocked on the heavy wooden door of the pastor's study. The room smelled faintly of leather and old books. A large cross hung on the wall above the desk, its polished wood catching the dim light of the desk lamp. Pastor Raymond sat behind the desk, his fingers steepled, eyes fixed on Anthony. "Close the door," the pastor said. Anthony obeyed, stepping further inside. What was supposed to be a simple pre-wedding blessing would soon turn into a conversation that Anthony would carry in his chest like a stone for the rest of the night. Words would be spoken that couldn't be unsaid. Words that would twist the very foundation of trust between them. But for now, outside the closed study door, the laughter, the music, and the clinking of glasses carried on as though nothing was wrong. No one in that church could have guessed that before sunrise, Anthony Brooks would be gone, and the man who took his life would be the father of the bride. The door to Pastor Raymond Turner's study closed with a soft click, shutting out the cheerful hum of the church hall. Inside, the air felt heavier, almost still, as though the four walls themselves were listening. Anthony stood near the door for a moment, his hand brushing against the polished brass handle, as if unsure whether to stay or leave. He had never been fully at ease in this room. The towering shelves of theology books, the smell of leather and sandalwood, the perfectly organized desk, it all seemed designed to remind visitors of the man's authority. "Sit," Pastor Raymond said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. Anthony obeyed, lowering himself into the seat. The chair's high back seemed to trap him there, cutting off the rest of the world. He rested his hands on his knees, waiting for whatever important matter had brought him here. The pastor leaned forward, his elbows on the desk, fingers interlocked. "Anthony, tomorrow is a big day for you. For both of you." His voice was calm, almost too calm. "Yes, sir," Anthony replied, trying to smile. "We're both excited." "Jasmine." The pastor raised a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "I'm not here to talk about Jasmine," he said. Anthony blinked. "I don't understand." Raymond's eyes softened, but not in a fatherly way. "Anthony, there's something I've kept to myself for a long time. I've been wrestling with it, praying over it, and tonight, I can't keep silent anymore." Anthony shifted in his seat, unease prickling at the back of his neck. "What's this about?" "I've developed feelings for you," the pastor said bluntly. "From the moment you walked into this church 3 years ago, I felt drawn to you." Anthony froze. "Sir, that's not." "I'm not asking for your approval, son," Raymond interrupted, his tone tightening. "I'm telling you that what I feel is real. And I believe you feel it too. You've always been respectful, careful with your words around me. That's not just politeness, it's connection." Anthony shook his head, his pulse pounding. "No. I respect you because you're my pastor, because you're Jasmine's father. That's it. I love her. I'm marrying her tomorrow. Whatever you're suggesting." Raymond's expression shifted from calm to something darker. His voice dropped lower. "You're making a mistake. You don't understand what I can give you, the kind of life we could have, away from expectations, away from her." Anthony's stomach churned. He pushed his chair back slightly. "I don't want any part of this conversation. I'm marrying Jasmine, and that's final." The pastor's jaw tightened. "You're rejecting me," he said slowly, as though the words tasted bitter. "After everything I've done for you, after welcoming you into my home, my family, my church. You've done those things as a pastor, not because you wanted something from me," Anthony said, standing now. "I think we should just end this conversation here." Raymond's eyes followed him with a cold, assessing stare. "You'll regret saying no to me, Anthony." Anthony paused with his hand on the doorknob, his heart hammering. For a split second, he wondered if the man would physically stop him from leaving. But Raymond only sat back in his chair, a faint, unsettling smile curling his lips. "You'll see," the pastor murmured. "One way or another, you won't walk down that aisle tomorrow." Outside, the laughter of the bridal party echoed down the hall. Anthony walked away quickly, but the words clung to him like a shadow. He didn't know it yet, but that shadow would follow him all the way to his doorstep later that night, and it would pull the trigger. The rest of the evening carried on with the sort of cheer you'd expect before a wedding. The rehearsal dinner took place at Jasmine's family home, a modest two-story brick house with a wraparound porch and strings of fairy lights glowing softly in the warm Georgia night. Inside, the air was filled with the smell of baked chicken, roasted vegetables, and freshly baked cornbread. Friends and family chatted between bites, clinking glasses of sweet tea and lemonade, sharing stories about the couple. Jasmine's cheeks hurt from smiling. Anthony tried to match her joy, but his mind was still back in that dimly lit study, the pastor's words replaying over and over. "You won't walk down that aisle tomorrow." Every time he caught sight of Raymond across the room, a chill ran through him. The older man seemed perfectly at ease, moving from guest to guest, laughing warmly, asking after people's children, telling jokes. To anyone else, he was the picture of gracious host and proud father. But Anthony saw something in his eyes that others didn't, a watchfulness, a quiet calculation. After dinner, Jasmine's bridesmaids convinced her to stay the night at her parents' home for one last sleepover before she became a wife. Anthony was planning to head back to his apartment to rest, but Jasmine insisted on walking him to his car. Under the soft glow of the porch light, she reached up and straightened his tie playfully. "You've been quiet tonight," she said. "Nervous?" Anthony hesitated. He wanted to tell her everything, but what would that do? On the eve of their wedding, dropping a bomb like that would destroy her joy, and possibly her relationship with her father. "I'm just tired," he said finally, forcing a smile. "Big day tomorrow." She kissed him goodnight, and for a moment, the warmth of her touch made him forget the cold stare that had haunted him all evening. Anthony got into his silver sedan and started the drive home. The streets were quiet, lit only by the occasional street lamp. But as he approached an intersection, headlights appeared in his rearview mirror, bright, too close. He frowned. The car stayed behind him through 2 turns, never passing, never falling back. It was a dark sedan, one he thought he recognized, but he couldn't be sure. He told himself it was nothing, just another driver heading home late. By the time he pulled into his driveway, the sedan was nowhere in sight. He exhaled, shaking off the unease, and got out of the car. The air was still and heavy, the kind of night where every sound felt louder than it should. He was halfway to his front door when a voice came from the shadows. "Anthony." He spun around. Standing at the edge of the driveway was Pastor Raymond Turner. The dim light from the porch caught the glint of something metallic in his hand. "We need to talk," the pastor said. Anthony's pulse spiked. "I told you, there's nothing left to say." Raymond took a step closer, his voice dropping into a low, almost pleading tone. "It doesn't have to be like this. You don't have to marry her. We can work this out. You just have to be honest with yourself." Anthony shook his head. "No. I'm not doing this with you. Go home. And I'm telling Jasmine first thing tomorrow morning." The pastor's face hardened, his jaw locking. "Then you leave me no choice." The sound came fast and violent, bang. A burst of pain exploded in Anthony's chest. He stumbled back, hitting the porch railing. Another shot followed, then another. Anthony collapsed on the doorstep, blood pooling beneath him, his breath short and ragged. His eyes found the pastor's face one last time, and what he saw there wasn't anger, it was something far colder. Raymond stood over him for a moment, the gun hanging at his side, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. The wedding day would never come. The morning of June 14th was supposed to be the happiest day of Jasmine Turner's life. She was in her mother's living room, getting her hair done for the wedding, when a knock came at the door. 2 uniformed officers stood there, their expressions grave. "Are you Jasmine Turner?" one asked softly. "Yes, what's going on?" "Ma'am, we're sorry to inform you. Your fiancé, Anthony Brooks, was found dead outside his apartment early this morning." The words hit her like a physical blow. Her knees gave out, and someone caught her before she hit the floor. Detectives arrived at Anthony's neighborhood before sunrise. A neighbor's security camera had captured a dark sedan pulling into Anthony's driveway minutes before the shooting. The driver's figure was visible for a split second. The license plate matched Pastor Raymond Turner, Jasmine's father. A search warrant for Raymond's home and vehicle turned up the murder weapon, a .45 caliber handgun, in the trunk of his sedan. Ballistics confirmed it matched the bullets from Anthony's body. Gunshot residue tests on his hands came back positive. When brought in for questioning, Raymond first claimed he only went to talk to Anthony about the wedding. But confronted with the evidence, he said flatly, "He disrespected me. I gave him a choice. He made the wrong one." The case moved quickly to court. Prosecutors painted a picture of a man used to authority, both in the pulpit and in his home, who couldn't handle rejection. Witnesses from the church testified about Raymond's controlling behavior and his unusual fixation on Anthony. Jasmine took the stand, her voice breaking as she admitted she had no idea her father harbored any personal feelings toward her fiancé until the trial. She told the jury, "I lost the love of my life and the father I thought I knew. All in one night." The jury took less than 4 hours to return a verdict, guilty of first-degree murder. Judge Margaret Ellis addressed the court before delivering her ruling. This was a calculated act by a man in a position of trust, power, and moral authority. The breach of that trust makes this crime even more heinous. Raymond Turner was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He showed no visible remorse as deputies led him away. That night before the wedding was supposed to be a celebration of love, unity, and family. Instead, it became a haunting tale of obsession, pride, and irreversible loss. The pastor's actions not only robbed his daughter of the man she loved but also tore apart the very fabric of the church and community he once led. Love, when mixed with power and selfishness, can become a dangerous weapon, and in this case, it cost 2 lives and left scars that may never heal. If you were in the daughter's position, finding out your father killed your fiancé the night before your wedding, what would you do? Would you forgive him as family or seek justice no matter the cost? If this heartbreaking story kept you hooked, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life crime stories that dig deep into the human heart and mind. And remember to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next upload.